very first breakout episode of the Untamed Aether podcast. My name is Molly, and it is my pleasure to welcome you if this is your very first time with us. The whole purpose of this podcast is to talk about the real and the raw and the things we go through on our healing journey and just our life journey as a soul, having a physical experience while being technically a spiritual being. What we're going to talk about today is what is a receiving wound? What are receiving challenges people face, and how can these challenges kind of put you on a slower path to opening your abilities? I feel like this is something that not many people talk about. Everybody wants to run and start working with their abilities and negates all of the internal work that has to happen to really safely open them up. So that is what the topic of today's episode is all about. Feel free to grab your treats, your drinks, whatever that may be, and a blanket. And again, welcome to today's episode of the Untamed Aether podcast. When we talk about what is a receiving wound, what we're really talking about is what are the things that your nervous system is struggling to hold, and what are the things you find it hard to accept. Whether that is through a belief system, whether that is through learned behaviors and just patterns that you've accepted over time. These are really what can kind of hold us back from having the experiences that we want to have. And it's not for like a fault or something to feel guilty about. It is just one of those fundamental things as human beings that we have to work through and able to open up more of ourselves. It's really about integrating those pieces of ourselves, those shadows of ourselves, and how do we make them something that works for us versus something that's holding us back or is this big kind of black cloud that hangs over us. One of the things I always first talk about when I'm teaching people, whether we're teaching in a class, whatever setting it may be, is really to discuss the way that we receive information, right? Because that's about what opening our gifts is changing our perception, the way that our senses receive information, the way that we use our brain technically as like a FM AM transmitter on a radio. And so I have people who come to me and they're like, oh, I just need to open my third eye. I just need to do this. And what I always say is, if you're looking at your body as a channel, right, you have lines of flow coming in and flow coming out from left to right. So remember, your left side is your receiving side. This is also your feminine side, your future side. Your right side is your male side, your giving side, and this is the past side. So that's one way to explain the way energy moves through this side. And with that, that is how we grab information from the ether and bring it into our consciousness and accept it into our auric field. So if we are someone who struggles to receive love, you struggle to receive support, you struggle to receive kindness, you really struggle at compliments, that is the prime example of a receiving wound. Okay, and so the example that I use all the time is like this. If someone walked up to you today and they made a statement that, here's $10, I think you're a really great person, and I just want you to have this. Most people will be like, that's weird, but thanks for the $10, like I really appreciate it. Whereas, if someone else walked up to you and said, here's $3 million because I think you're an amazing person, 9 times out of 10, people will be like, oh, what is this? What's the catch? No, I can't accept that. No, that's not for me. No, couldn't be. What's the catch? What's the catch? And you will find people who have so many reasons that they're going to reject it. And the reason, truthfully, subconsciously, is because their nervous system can't control that. It doesn't feel that it's worth of that. It feels out of control, that it doesn't know what to do with it, that there isn't a fundamental understanding of how to integrate that into your shadow. That is the same with receiving love. This is why I always say love and money are on the same frequency. There are people out there, right, many of us, who feel that we weren't worthy of love at some point. Maybe you're someone who's there right now. You don't feel worthy of kindness. You don't feel worthy of support from other people. And with that, you you're sending a direct message up through the ether that you also don't feel worthy of them either. And not feeling worthy of getting your lost loved one support, your guide support, will cause a barrier to that communication. So that is a prime example of a receiving wound. If you don't feel that you're worthy of the support that your guides can give you, you won't receive it, right? Because you will automatically create a resistance in that channel to not receive the information, because your body will say not safe, or I'm not worth this, or I'm not good enough. And then this is what's happening with the information. And then what I notice with this too is that guilt and shame spiral gets worse. So as people are trying to connect up, as they're trying to connect in, they're going, well, they just don't want to talk to me. Oh, I'm not doing it right. And there's always a reason, right? And when you listen to the way people respond, it really tells you a lot about how they feel about themselves. So whenever someone comes to me and they're like, my guides just don't like to talk back to me, that is someone taking on the responsibility that there is something wrong with them at a fundamental level, and that their guides don't want to talk to them because of how whatever's wrong with them. That's not true. That is their own belief system that is causing them to interpret that. And that fundamental feeling is what's causing the receiving block. I also, I have people who tell me, I think my guides are mad at me. I think they're mad at me. And what I will tell you is they're not mad at you. Sometimes they get frustrated, right? Because they try to send messages and we miss them, or we don't believe in them. That can get frustrating, but there is never a moment where your guides are mad at you. And then I also want to tell you that the way in which you interpret the physical world is the way in which you will interpret the spiritual world. So if you are someone who lives every day like, there's no support for me, I'm all alone, I'm not worthy, that's also how you're going to experience the spiritual realm. So this is one of the things I talk about often: as above, so below. The way you feel in the physical will transcend into the others. This is the also same thing I say about fears too, right? So this is why I think shadow work is such an integral part of starting your journey, because in doing shadow work, you're able to ground the way you feel around certain traumas, certain experiences. And therefore, if they were ever to happen to you in the spiritual realm, you are someone who would have the ability to know how to handle it, because you worked through it and already integrated that part of you, right? And so one of the things too with this receiving wound that I see pretty often is people who are just afraid to look at themselves. It is much easier to look at everybody else. And I find this when I work with mediums. And I was there at one point too, where I felt like I couldn't read for myself, but I had no problem reading for other people. And my guides really taught me a lesson in that of, you had a firm belief that you just weren't good enough to do it for you, but you are good enough to do it in service of others. And at the core level, that was a self-worth wound, right? And it was something I had to work through to really open up more channels for me, and be able to do more work for myself. I've met plenty of mediums who say that they can read for other people but not themselves, and it's working through that self-worth, self-confidence piece that comes kind of with this work. Especially if you're someone who works in like a helping profession, you find yourself in service to other people often, you will struggle to do things for yourself. It'll feel selfish, especially if you're someone who's an eternal people pleaser. But a lot of this work is surrendering that ego and the control over how helpful you are, what people think of you, what you can do for other people. And one of the other things that I've noticed too is people set expectations on what their information coming into them should look like. So people will develop their own receiving wounds through imagining how things should be versus what it looks like for them. I needed someone to provide these things for me, and I needed it to work out this way, and I needed this, because I didn't believe that it was something I could provide for myself. I didn't find myself worthy enough that there was something I could do for people on my own to sustain my life. That's also not how I was raised, right? Whenever people talk about starting a business or having a small business, how hard it is, how difficult it is, no one succeeds, everybody fails a bunch of times, and that's totally true. But Also, in breaking out of that mold and being able to look at how I do want to receive things, I was able to transform my whole life. And the more that I worked through my receiving wounds, the more open I was in my extra sensory abilities, because I was more open to things just happening and going with the flow versus having a set expectation. I am someone who used to get really bent out of shape when my schedule for the day was, like, um, I don't know, what's the word? When your schedule gets disrupted, I used to have a tizzy about that. And now I don't, I try to, like, I have a very loose schedule that I set for myself every day. And then I just move around it. I have really learned to just go with the flow of life and trust in the universe with intended action, right? And in doing that, I've been able to deconstruct a lot of those belief systems that I have. And so, one of the things people ask me about pretty frequently is, well, what are some ways that I can work on these receiving wounds? And the very first thing I'm going to say is stop lying to yourself. I can't tell you how many people come to me for certain issues, and the issue will come up over and over and over and over and over again. And the person will always say, I know, I'm working on it. I know, I'm working on it. You're not, though, because it would not continue to come up. It wouldn't. Especially for months on end. And so, if you are someone who finds yourself giving yourself that excuse on a regular basis, I want you to ask yourself the real question: how are you actually working on it? Don't just say you're working on it. I want you to give yourself examples of ways that you are actually working on it. And one of the things to working on receiving wounds is you have to start calling yourself out on your own shit, and you have to be responsible for your reactions. Okay, so what I mean by that is this. One of the ways that I started working through some of my receiving wounds was, hold on, I want to think of the best way to explain this, was in every time I had a reaction to something internally, I would have to go up in my brain and stop for a minute. And I would have to ask, where is that reaction coming from? And I would focus on where I'm feeling it in my body. And by doing that, I would find what I call the energetic file, so to speak. And with finding that energetic file, I can understand where that reaction is stemming from. Is it hitting on my confidence? Is it hitting on a past fear? Is it a difference in beliefs or a difference in morals? Is it an ethical issue? Is it just something that I have experienced, which now I may have a bias to the way I'm experiencing this? You really have to start asking yourself questions about why you are the way you are, why you react the way that you react, and why you believe certain things. And that's one of the hardest things for people is they don't want to look into themselves because they feel like they know themselves I know myself better than everybody. There's very few people who actually know themselves. I've come to learn that. And when you are someone who can cut right through someone's energy field and look at what they're working with, you'll be able to see like all of these things because they're things you've worked through. I will always say to everyone I teach that the more you know yourself, the more you'll know your brothers and sisters in this universe. You just will. You want to understand everybody else, but in understanding everybody else, you'll find yourself. Through finding yourself, you'll understand everybody else. So it's really about how do you fully comprehend certain things as a soul having a human experience. One of the things that I've seen quite frequently is an example of people who think that they have traits, but they don't understand the fundamental issue with the trait itself. So what I mean by that is this. Say you are someone who says that you come to me and you say, I am always so kind and compassionate to everybody, but I get treated, like crap. And I think I'm just very compassionate, but no one gives that back to me. So then the next thing I'm going to say is, do you struggle with showing yourself compassion and grace? And then most people will tell me, yeah, their inner critic's really bad. They're really not nice to themselves. So what I'm going to tell you is this. If that is you, you are not compassionate. You are emulating what you think compassion is, not because you embody it, bodying it and living it. They're very different things. And this is why I always say, until you understand a topic for yourself, you will not be able to understand it for anybody else. This is the same with love, okay? If you don't love yourself, if you don't have a relationship with yourself, you will not be able to love someone else. And I can't tell you how many people tell me, well, I love myself, and I wonder why they lie to themselves like that. Because if you loved yourself, you would not overpour out of your cup into other people's. You would not try to save anybody else. You would not go out of your way to do things for other people when it's actively a detriment to you. You would not make excuses for yourself. There are so many things people tell me all the time. Well, I love myself, but then the actions they elicit tell me a completely different story. And this is one of the things where I talk about where people are like, how do I open up my gifts and do these things? You have to learn you. You have to learn who you are at a physical, fundamental level. And people ask me, how did you start doing this? And one, this is still something I work through every day. I don't ever think that we're healed. I think every day you learn new experiences, you have new things that happen, and you learn ways to deal with them. And in being able to control, not so much control, that's not the word I want to use, but in being able to regulate your nervous system and understand your responses, you will be able to go through anything in life without it rocking the boat, so to speak. I'm not saying you won't still have strong emotions and things like that, but you will be able to cope with it better, and you will not get tied up with them for years on end. You will not hold on to things. You will let go of things. You will process your emotions. You will let go of the past. There are so many things that you will do on a daily basis. And so every day when I have something that, I have a reaction to, I ask myself questions about it because I want to know, why is this happening? Why am I reacting that way? Every day I process emotions. Sometimes they're happy emotions, sometimes they're sad emotions, but I work through them as they come. I don't ever try to stuff them anymore. The day that I really decided that I needed to connect in with myself was the summer of 2024. I was working 3 different jobs, and I knew something had to give, like a major change had to come. And I knew the only person I could rely on for that change was myself. And I quit all of my jobs, and I went and sat on a couch for 6 months and stared at a wall 12 hours a day. And I'm not saying do this. I'm very grateful that I had the space to do that. But I really took those 6 months to just sit with me and understand me and work with my guides through things and heal through things. And I had so many experiences in those 6 months that I am so grateful for, because I was able to sit and be present. I learned so much more about myself than I ever could in any other time. And I needed to be quiet and alone. And that's exactly what I did. And I learned more about myself in those 6 months than I ever have in my whole life. And I am forever grateful for that. And it has really pushed my trajectory to where I am today. And that is why my passion for helping people step into their power, helping them understand their gifts, helping them understand how they are, why they are the way they are, that there's no shame in anything they experience, and that you really are in charge of your own reality and whatever you want to experience it as. So the other thing I will say too about these receiving wounds is looking at asking yourself questions. Why do you fear accepting love from other people? Why do you fear trusting in people? Why do you fear support from other people, right? And as I'm asking these questions, I'm getting all these answers, that have come up for me over the years. And what I realized is it's in blaming other people for their actions, I was giving my power away. And so I had to take a moment to look at what was my part in these things. What patterns was I repeating? What things was I constantly dealing with or going through, but I didn't quite understand why or what it looks like. I will tell you that there are receiving wounds to this day I still work through. And a lot of them are love related, but not so much in a platonic sense, but more a romantic sense. A weird fact for me is I've been blamed for a lot of things throughout my life. Um, One of the famous things that seems to happen to me on a regular basis is somebody will do something, like they'll break something, or they'll, I don't know, they'll just something dumb, and they'll go, it's fine, I'll blame Molly. Like, that has been a common thing. Or, it's fine, I blame you. That has always been like a common thing. And so what happened in turn is that I internalized a lot of that blame. And so when I wasn't able to connect, or I didn't think I was doing certain ways, my first thought is, oh, it's always my fault. Oh, I must be doing something wrong. I remember in the summer of 2023 is when I really started to reconnect into my guides every day. That's really when I started sitting down and reconnecting with them every day. And the first week that I tried to connect with them, I genuinely thought that I was doing something wrong. And the reason is because, so I set myself up. So for the first week, every day after work, I would dedicate 15 minutes to connecting in to my guides and myself. So what I would do is I would do 3 things I'm grateful for in the first couple minutes. And then from there, I would pull myself some cards. I would do like a card spread, write down what the card spread is. And then I would take a few minutes to just close my eyes and breathe and be present with whatever information my guides wanted to bring forward. And I remember the very first day I sat down to do this, as soon as I got in the zone to connect with my guides, I thought I was going to vomit. And I was like, what is happening? Like, why is this a thing? And I'm like, I have to be doing something wrong if I feel like I'm going to be sick. Like, this doesn't make any sense. And so for a week straight, every time I tried to connect with my guides, I just felt nauseous. And I was like, well, I'm obviously not doing something properly. Like, I have to be doing something wrong. And it wasn't until, honestly, like the 7th day straight where I connected in and I felt nauseous, but a man stepped in front of me. And I can tell you how he felt, the energy he brought through, so many things about him. I couldn't see him, but my inner knowing of who it was and how he presented himself went off like this. And I just remember being so like ecstatic. Oh my God, it finally happened. And I was still dealing with nausea. And what I learned over time is I wasn't ever doing anything wrong, but I had been in such a different space at that time that I had to work on clearing out some of that density and those receiving wounds to be able to meet my guides where they're at. And that takes time. Things become more clear over time too. And there are also initiations and other things that happen through your spiritual practice, and everything happens on people's individual time. Okay, so when people like set expectations for I should be doing this at this time and by this time I'll be here, don't do that. Just go with how things unfold for you. And then the other thing I will say too is not every meditation, not every chat with your guides is going to be this big, huge spiritual experience, Sometimes you go into meditation and you just get a little movie screen, or sometimes you just get a couple symbols and a couple of words. Sometimes you just get not much. That's just how it is. I want you to think of your relationship with your guides like a relationship with your friends, okay? Sometimes you and your friends can stay on the phone for hours and you can talk about everything. Other days, you don't want to talk that much. There's not much to talk about. You've already talked about a lot this week and there isn't much left for right this second. That is what relationships with your guides are like. Friendships, they really are. It's about building that friendship and working relationship with them. The other thing that I see as far as receiving wounds with people receiving support is you're not like a lowly, puny being to them. Like, you are a powerful sovereign being. You are not more or less than them. You are an equal, okay? So you can ask them any question you want. There isn't a question that's like below them. There isn't a stupid question by any means. Those are your own belief systems that are getting in the way of blocking you from talking to your guides. Whenever you're like, oh, that's stupid, or oh, that's your ego getting in the way. Your guides will not ever say to you, don't ask me that, or don't waste my time with that. That will never happen, because this is what their time is for. It's the same with your lost loved ones. Um, you know, as respectful as I can say this, whenever I hear of someone, I've done plenty of mediumship readings for people. And unfortunately, a lot of those readings were to make up for something another medium did. And this was without my knowledge, okay? So, I've done readings for people where I'll connect to someone, and after the reading, someone's like, "Do you know how many mediums I've gone to try to connect to that person, and no one's been able to do it?" I've had someone else who said that they went to another medium who tried to connect with someone, and the medium told them, "The dead person doesn't want to talk to you right now." What? That's just, that is people making, respectfully, an excuse for their inability to go up and in, and it's probably getting over their own belief systems, their own fears, things like that. This is why I say that this work is really, really sacred, because you are bringing a message through to help with somebody's journey in this lifetime. It's not for show. It's not, "Oh, look what I can do." It's, "How can I help you to the best of my ability with the information I am able to bring through?" That is why I always say I am here to help you bridge the gap between spiritual connection and genuine human connection. And that connection is connecting you back to yourself. Yes, I can do mediumship. Yes, I can do all these things. I'm not special. I am not anything different than you. You also have these abilities. I am just more tuned into them. They are more in tune than other people's, and some people's are much more in tune than mine, But everybody has this ability. Everybody can do these things. What you really need to focus on is, how do you become mind, body, soul as one to be able to utilize those abilities for the best of yourself and humanity as a whole? Because having these abilities is an honor and a privilege. And if you are not helping others with them, you're doing yourself a disservice. The more that I help people with my gifts, the more my gifts grow and the more I learn about my own gifts. And I am forever grateful to be able to do this every day, and see people grow and see them shift and change into the person that they want to be. And one of the biggest things that I love helping people do is work through the trauma and belief systems that are causing them to have these receiving wounds. And sometimes these receiving wounds are as simple as, if you struggle to connect with people on a human level, you'll struggle to connect up there on a soul level. So, if I can say anything to you today to end our breakout episode, it would be this. Take the time to learn about you. Take the time to be your own best friend. Take the time to learn why you are the way that you are, and see how your energy shifts and how your belief and perspective can change. I hope you all have a beautiful day. Again, my name is Molly. Thanks for hanging out with me for the Untamed Aether podcast. If you are looking for more episodes, how to learn how to do these things, to be a part of guided meditations and more, come check us out in our Patreon community under Aether and Ash Spiritual Collective. Find us on TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook. Have a wonderful day or night wherever you may be, and I will see you later.